right, everybody, welcome back to the 2013 Pokemon Video Game World Championships stream. Today, Sejun Park versus Ryosuke Kosuge. This is the #1 seed versus the #8 seed, and these are two phenomenal players, and I am expecting just the match of the century here.
Yeah, this could easily have been the World Finals, I think. Two champions from two of the best regions in the world. Really excited to see these guys make it to the top cut and show the whole world what they can do.
Yeah, definitely an exciting match. So we are going to get into the game as soon as possible here. Sejun, possibly one of the most innovative players and the person who has had the greatest influence on, I think, the world metagame as a whole since Ray Rizzo way back when.
Yeah, Sejun's done a lot for the game. There's a few players in any game, I think, who set the trends that everyone else tries to follow, and Sejun's definitely one of those players for the video game. He's really popularized some Pokemon like Liepard and Breloom, who weren't nearly as popular before he started using them. He's not afraid to take risks and innovate with new Pokemon that theoretically are strong, but maybe that no one else has ever proven. He's not afraid, even in big tournaments, to be willing to take those chances to prove that any Pokemon can work if you can build around them well enough.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be amazing to watch this play out. As we mentioned, some of the weirder things up at the top, most of those were spearheaded by Sejun at one point or another. The spores from Breloom, and of course some of the stranger fire types. I expect to see some great plays out of him. So we are going to just talk a little bit more about Ryosuke a little bit. He won the Japanese National Championships. Clearly no player to overlook. But it looks like we're actually going to get right into the game. So let's go ahead and take a look at team preview here. On the top of your screen is going to be Ryosuke Kosuge. You can see his team there. That's Tyranitar, Heatran, Landorus Therian form, Cresselia, Thundurus Incarnate form, and Conkeldurr. And off-screen, Sejun Park's team is Magmar, Marowak, Tornadus, Jellicent, and Scrafty, and Abomasnow.
Sejun's team, probably the more exciting here. Ryosuke's using a team that's very similar, if not identical to what he used at Japanese Nationals. So a lot of players may have seen that already. But Sejun using Magmar, a Pokemon that's basically never been seen in competitive play before, as well as Marowak, who's another really rare one. So this should be really exciting to see what he can do with these Pokemon.
The crowd's already getting excited, and I am also. Here we go. Ryosuke on the top of your screen, and Sejun down at the bottom. Definitely hope to see some Magmar play today in this game, or the next, or possibly the third if we go to all three. Ryosuke at the top of your screen, going to go ahead and lead double Genies. That's Landorus Therian form and Thundurus Incarnate up against Scrafty and the oh-so-pretty Jellicent.
This looks a little similar to the first turn of Japanese Nationals, actually. In that situation, Ryosuke was playing against a similar team that was using Jellicent, slow Pokemon, to try to set up Trick Room, which is likely what will be attempted here.
Yeah, paired alongside that Scrafty, which puts out fake-out pressure, definitely a common play, common lead that we see from people trying to set up Trick Room. Sejun, probably not as reliant on Trick Room as some teams that we've seen, but he will definitely want to use that.
Yeah, Sejun's got a bunch of attackers that really don't want to take a lot of damage. They can maybe take one hit, but they deal out damage really well, and they just need other Pokemon to kind of help protect them. One way you can do that is to control speed with moves like Trick Room, or with attacks like Follow Me, which redirect attacks, which is what his good Pokemon Magmar does, the rising star of worlds.
And it looks like we are going to get right away with the first turn. The fake out coming out from Scrafty onto that Thundurus, going to make sure that Thundurus flinches and is unable to use its moves. And here comes the Landorus, going to use its Earthquake. Of course, going to hit both the Scrafty and the Jellicent, but not the flying Thundurus. Going to deal some good damage there. It's a little bit of damage that he'll like having coming up. And there is the Trick Room from the Jellicent. So now we've got Sejun with a pretty good position here up against these two speedy Pokemon.
Yeah, he had to take some damage to do it, but he got what he wanted out of that turn. He was able to set up the Trick Room and avoid any tricks from Thundurus. That's common for Thundurus to use moves like Taunt and Swagger, both of which would probably stop the Trick Room. So he's able to sacrifice a little bit of damage to get in a position he wants to here. And now when he's got Trick Room, he's got to use the next 4 turns to make sure he can find a way to get some damage on the other side of the field and get control of this game.
Speaking of dealing damage, that Thundurus with its leftover is going to be taking not that much damage from either the Jellicent or the Scrafty. Scrafty a little bit more threatening, but Jellicent is usually more supportive, bulkier. And you can see that Thundurus, even though it's in Trick Room and it's a speedy Pokemon, it has Prankster. And what does Prankster do? It lets you swagger before anyone else gets a chance to move. So that swagger is going to raise the attack of Jellicent and confuse it, making it less likely for the Jellicent to be able to pull off an attack. Scrafty goes ahead and drain punches the Landorus, going to heal off a little bit there, but dealing a pretty insignificant amount of damage to the Landorus there. And we can see Jellicent trying to fight through the confusion. Here it is. Will it be able to get off its own attack? Yes. Jellicent consuming its gem, going to boost the power of this next attack. Gets the water spout off. It's going to be dealing a whole mess of damage to both of the Landorus and the, well, not so much the Thundurus, but does get the knockout onto Landorus, and Sejun takes an early lead.
It's a big knockout too. Landorus is an important Pokemon here because it's able to use Intimidate to reduce the attack power of the Pokemon on Sejun's team, Scrafty being one of them. So the rest of the game now, he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. He's able to allow his physical attackers just to run free. Probably expecting a switch there, Sejun was, so he put the Drain Punch in that slot and also used Water Spout, knowing that you get pretty good damage either way, and it worked out well for him, netting him a KO.
Yep, and Ryosuke making the adjustment here, knowing that Trick Room is still up, sends out his slow Conkeldurr right there on the top of your screen. He's going to be able to threaten that Scrafty depending on their speeds. Definitely a good Pokemon to use during Trick Room, but it looks like Scrafty wants nothing to do with that. It's going to be able to bounce back to Sejun, gets the be able to use the Intimidate again if it needs to, but the Fake Out pressure, and Marowak hits the field to cheers from the crowd here. Gets hit by the Hammer Arm though. It's going to take some damage, a whole lot of damage. Look, oh my gosh. Just barely survives that Hammer Arm with 14 HP. A little bit of damage taken by Conkeldurr from its Life Orb there. An interesting item choice from Ryosuke. And the Jellicent hits itself in its confusion, dealing some damage to itself and unable to make an attack. And here comes the Thundurus trying to get off its electric type attack there, but it's redirected thanks to Marowak's Lightning Rod.
Yeah, one of the great things about Marowak there, it's able to redirect the Thunderbolt.
Yeah, the Marowak is doing a whole lot of work to protect that Jellicent from Thundurus's very scary electric type attacks.
The tables have kind of been turned here. We were talking about how it was great. Sejun's got Trick Room up. He's in good shape. But Conkeldurr, now the slowest Pokemon on the field, and it doesn't matter how quick you are in the Trick Room when you're being confused and can't attack anyway. So Thundurus and Conkeldurr are able to keep Ryosuke in the game here.
The Life Orb on Conkeldurr, a really interesting item choice. Going to be able to boost the power of Conkeldurr's attacks at the cost of some of its HP. But you saw just how much damage that dealt to Marowak. With that Life Orb, he's going to be hitting like a truck, and I'm not so sure that Sejun has something to respond to it.
Yeah, it's really intimidating damage. Marowak, not the bulkiest Pokemon in the world, but it is a little stronger on the physical side, so even in spite of that, Conkeldurr's wrecks it.
Yep, and Thundurus knows that it can't get anything done while Marowak's still on the field, so he's going to bounce back in favor of Tyranitar. Lands with a thump on the field, kicks up the Sandstorm, going to be dealing some small chip damage to all non-rock, ground, or steel types on the field, while Marowak goes ahead and detects to protect itself from any attack coming its way from Conkeldurr. Well, it looks like Conkeldurr tried to go for the attack on the Marowak, but thanks to that detect was unsuccessful, and it looks like the Water Spout goes off again from the Jellicent. A little bit weaker now that it's took some damage, but it's still going to be a good amount of damage to be dealt to both the Conkeldurr and the Tyranitar.
Yeah, not a bad turn there for either side. Sejun gets some damage off, but Ryosuke really improves his position there by getting Tyranitar out in the field. He's got Tyranitar out, who Jellicent doesn't really want to deal with, and Conkeldurr out, who Marowak doesn't really want to deal with. So it's an interesting turn in the game here. Sejun's got the lead, but this position favors Ryosuke.
Yeah, and momentum is definitely one of the most important parts of Pokemon. You talk a lot about, who has the points lead, who has enough Pokemon left. But if you don't have the momentum behind you, you won't be able to close out the game. Yeah,
pretty well played game by both sides here. They're not just focusing on the lead, they're trying to stay in good positions.
And Marowak's going for the double detect, gets it. It's a much less of a chance if you try to do that on consecutive turns. And Jellicent's going to try and do the same thing, but it's going to get it off through the confusion, gets the protect down to protect itself from both of these Pokemon. Stalling out his own Trick Room as both Conkeldurr and Tyranitar not going to be able to break through those protects and detects.
Yeah, bit of an awkward situation there, having to stall off your own support move, but he's able to do it there. He gets the double detect when he needs it, and now he'll end up in a better position again. Like I said, both sides just jockeying to having that superior position so they can make plays here.
Yeah, and once the Trick Room is gone, that will put Sejun in a much better position.
Yeah. Although not a great one. It's balanced now. Conkeldurr, even though it's slower, does have that priority Mach Punch.
Which you can see it using right there. Going to be able to get the KO out on Marowak. leaving Jellicent up against Tyranitar and the Conkeldurr all by its lonesome. Here it goes, trying to get off another attack, and it looks like it will be able to get off that Water Spout. Going to deal about the same amount of damage there. Even though Tyranitar is weak to that Water-type attack, the special defense boost that it gets from the Sand is going to make sure that that it's going to take that Water Spout like a champ. And there, Tyranitar flings its Iron Ball to get the knockout on Jellicent, ensuring that Trick Room both cannot be reset and the speed-lowering aspect of that Iron Ball are no more.
That really skillful maneuver there. Iron Ball fling is one of the more difficult combination attacks to use in VGC. Iron Ball halves your speed, so it's really valuable in Trick Room, but you don't want to be stuck with it if you're not in Trick Room, since obviously being slower, not very desirable. So Tyranitar is able to get the knockout at just the right point there. It had the Iron Ball when Trick Room was up, and then it made sure it wouldn't need it anymore, just the right time.
Yep, and here comes Scrafty and Abomasnow on the field. Scrafty going to be able to get off its Intimidate onto the Conkeldurr and the Tyranitar. A really important move there, thanks to him, thanks to Sejun bringing that back earlier. And of course, Abomasnow is going to replace that Sand with the Hail.
Yeah, the Hail could be big here. It reduces Tyranitar's special defense, which is important to a special attacker like Abomasnow, and it gets that Hail damage out there just to slowly chip away at Tyranitar.
Yeah, and even though Tyranitar was doing okay against the Water Spouts, without Sand, Giga Drain from that Abomasnow could be trouble. But of course, Tyranitar recognizes that and does not want to have anything to do with it. Switches out for the Thundurus, which eats the Fake Out from Scrafty, which leaves Conkeldurr open to a Mach Punch onto that Scrafty. Super effective attack there from that Conkeldurr, and it's going to go ahead and knock itself out with the Life Orb recoil there.
That's the danger of Life Orb.
Trade off the extra damage for the KO there. And a Blizzard comes out from Abomasnow. Super effective Ice-type attack there is going to get the KO onto Thundurus. And it's Tyranitar versus the world for Ryosuke.
Now, a brilliant predicted switch there. Obviously, Giga Drain would have done more damage to the Rock-type Tyranitar. So he predicted that Thundurus would come back in there and that Ryosuke wouldn't just want to give Tyranitar for free, and he gets the knockout on the correct Pokemon instead.
Yeah, great turn there for Sejun, and now it looks like both the momentum and the points lead is in Sejun's favor as Tyranitar comes back out up against an Abomasnow and a Scrafty, both of which it doesn't want to be around.
Yeah, rough spot for Ryosuke for the rest of Game 1 here. Likely Sejun's going to take the series lead, so at this point in the game, you're just kind of trying to think of, okay, Game 2 is coming up. What did I learn in Game 1 that I can use to help me in Game 2? Because Tyranitar versus the world here isn't likely to go too well, though he's going to go for it.
It does go for its best shot using the Rock Slide, hoping for some flinches. Look at all that damage onto Abomasnow, but not quite enough. It gets down to the 33 blinking red HP. But unfortunately, Abomasnow is going to be able to recover some of that damage off with this Giga Drain. But will it be enough? No, still not quite enough. Tyranitar now in the red. And it's all down to whether Scrafty is able to make a move here. Scrafty's going for it. And yes, the Drain Punch comes in. Scrafty KOs Tyranitar, and Sejun takes a 1-0 lead in this, the first game.
Huge to get that first game lead there. It's so much easier to play a best of 3 with the lead. Ryosuke's not out yet. Lots of people have come back from that one-game deficit. But from now on, every single turn.
Yeah, every single turn will matter from this next game on. Ryosuke has to play perfectly and not give up any advantages. We talk about this a lot when we talk about best of 3s, but at this point it becomes an information game. How much information did Ryosuke get from Sejun, and how much information did Sejun get from Ryosuke? And at this point, I'm not sure who got more information than the other. We did see some interesting item choices like the Life Orb and the Leftovers on the Conkeldurr and the Thundurus respectively, as well as the Fling Iron Ball combo, which is a very important thing to get out there. But who do you think took home the information advantage there?
I mean, I think it's going to have to be Ryosuke. I think Sejun likely figured out that Ryosuke was using the same team he used at Nationals very early on. Sejun's a savvy guy. Mm-hmm. I would be really surprised if he hadn't been watching the Japanese Nationals. So I'm sure as soon as, especially when he saw Fling, he knew what this team was, so he's got all the information already. So any information Ryosuke can get now is really big for him. He didn't get a whole lot that game, but at least he got something. Jellicent's item is pretty big, and the damage it was doing likely helps him figure out the way that Jellicent was trained. I think that's really important. He probably also learned something about how he needs to play, because losing Landorus that early made it really difficult for him to combat the physical attackers in Sejun's team. So I think even though the game didn't go very well for him, it should be easier for him to play game 2 off of that. A part of the big disadvantage of using a team a second time is that you're playing from behind in best of 3s, but he's proven he can do that. I'm sure many of his opponents in Swiss also knew his team, and he still got to top cut, so obviously he's figured out how to deal with this.
Yeah, definitely a strong trainer. You can see his team on the screen. That's Tyranitar, Heatran, Landorus, Therian form, Cresselia, Thundurus, Incarnate form, and Conkeldurr. And again, Sejun Park's team was Magmar, Marowak, Tornadus, Jellicent, Scrafty, and Abomasnow. Sejun, everything seemed to go pretty well for him. Do you make any sort of adjustments there?
Yeah, I don't know if he needs to. He may choose to if he's expecting Ryosuke to make adjustments to him, but that was a pretty convincing victory there. Well, I guess flinches could have made it a little more fun at the end there. He has to feel good about the way he played in that first game, so I don't know if I make too many changes if I'm in. It's not broken.
The only interesting thing was how Trick Room got turned around on him earlier on in that first game. It'll be interesting to see if he still goes full Trick Room like that, and knowing that Ryosuke has such good counters for it.
Yeah.
But it looks like he will, with both of the Pokestar celebrities, Scrafty and oh so pretty Jellicent, out on the field, going up against Ryosuke's lead of Landorus and Thundurus. Double Genies, Scrafty and Jellicent, a repeat of last game.
You can appreciate the guts of both players, right? They're like, no, my strategy was fine. I'm just going to do it again, and I'm going to win. I imagine they're both going to change their tactics a little bit this time, but turn to turn, I'm sure these things will adjust. But I kind of agree with the players here. I think they made pretty good Pokemon choices in the first game, and just maybe a few decisions didn't go the way they wanted it to, and they'll probably adapt in this game. Even though we might see similar Pokemon, it should be a very different game this time.
Definitely, especially with that Landorus, as you mentioned, being so important. It probably won't be going down quite as easily this time around as well. Again, we have the fake out pressure from Scrafty, potentially able to set up the Trick Room for that Jellicent, as well as the potential for Taunt from the Thundurus Incarnate. We've already seen it. Swagger did a little bit of work there. Probably not as much Swagger confusion as Ryosuke would have hoped for, but it did get one.
Well, we do talk about innovation, right? That's something a lot of the Japanese players are known for, is using Swagger really ingeniously. So we're seeing kind of a clash of styles here and different types of innovations facing off.
Yeah, and it looks like Scrafty is going to go for the fake out onto Thundurus again. Not going to want to let it get off a taunt, which probably signals the Jellicent going for the Trick Room. Landorus going with the U-turn, targeting the Jellicent, going to deal a little bit of damage. Every bit of damage helps against Jellicent when it's using Water Spout as its main attacking move. It's going to go back to Ryosuke, who will then be selecting a new Pokemon to send out in its place.
Yeah, I like this adjustment here. We mentioned last game that they used Earthquake just to get some chip damage, but it didn't really seem to help him. So this time he's U-turning, gets that switch quicker, and he can react faster, but no Trick Room here.
Sejun making an amazing adjustment there, goes for the Water Spout on that Jellicent, going to get the full power of that gym-boosted Water Spout onto both the Thundurus and the Conkeldurr, bringing Conkeldurr down to, it looks like, the red there, while Thundurus recovers off just a little bit of help with that leftovers.
What a great adjustment there. I mean, you were talking before. He got his Trick Room turned around on him the first game. He probably wants to adjust from that. And there it is. He's like, I'm not just going to let you outspeed me in my own Trick Room. Get Water Spout. And gets a free hit off there with basically no damage coming the other way. So tough spot for Ryosuke here, especially down the first game already. He's really got to find a way to get out of this fast.
Yeah, and Conkeldurr was such a powerful offensive threat for him last game. And now to have it already so low with the Life Orb still being able to deal the recoil damage, that's going to be rough for Ryosuke. Sejun's going to switch back out for the Marowak, not going to let Thundurus get any Thunderbolts off onto that Jellicent. Ryosuke knew it was coming though, goes for the Swagger, going to raise the attack and get the confusion. Hope for some more lucky breaks here, or else that Water Spout's just going to rip through the team. You can see Jellicent, the little birdies around its head, and will it be able to get off its Water Spout? Well, we'll find out after this Mach Punch hits the Marowak, dealing a good amount of damage there, about 60 HP there. Birds around Jellicent's head. Does it have it? Will it be able to get the Water Spout off? And it looks like it will. The Water Spout goes off, and that's going to be bad news for Ryosuke. Conkeldurr goes down, and Thundurus hangs on by a shred.
Oh, Jellicent's doing some work this game. I do want to give Ryosuke some credit, though. He does make an adjustment just like Sejun did. Instead of just thunderbolting into the Lightning Rod switch, and he does correctly use Swagger instead, but sadly it doesn't work out for him here, and Sejun's taking another big lead.
Yeah, unfortunately the coin flip not working out quite as well as he might have hoped there. Landorus, does come back out, whose Earthquake will be able to deal good damage to that Jellicent and not have to worry about being redirected by Marowak's Lightning Rod. So good choice there. It's going to be interesting to see how Sejun reacts to that new threat.
Yeah, I mean, Landorus still being around is a big deal this time. Marowak, Didn't get to do a whole lot last game, other than just sort of be threatening and make it difficult to play. But this time it's got some health. It can actually battle a little bit, and having Intimidate there to reduce its damage is a big deal. Marowak isn't a popular Pokemon in VGC, but its greatest asset is it just does a ton of damage, one of the highest physical damage outputs in the game. So having it available here, it's important to be able to mitigate that, and Intimidate's a good way to do it.
Definitely important there, but it looks like Ryosuke isn't worried about Marowak's physical damage output, raising its attack and going for the confusion there. If Marowak hits itself, it's going to deal a whole heap and helping of damage there.
That's the opposite of Intimidate. Come on, man.
Some interesting synergy coming out there. Landorus does go for that Earthquake that is going to do a lot of damage. Marowak just barely surviving at 21 there, and Jellicent back down to the orange. Oh, and Marowak, its confusion, it hits itself in its confusion, is going to take out that last 21 HP and knock itself out. And here comes Jellicent. Is Jellicent going to be able to avenge his fallen comrade Marowak? Yes, by setting up Trick Room.
Yeah, Jellicent's decided that it's about time to slow things down, and it gets the speed control here, which is a big deal. Landorus quicker than anything that Sejun's using, so it'll help him take care of that Landorus here.
Yeah, and with Conkeldurr out of the way already, it's going to be a good position for Sejun now that the major threat to Trick Room is pretty much out of the way.
Yeah, some smart Pokemon there. He removes the threat, and then it's safe to set up the Trick Room. Tyranitar could still be a bit of a nuisance if that is Ryosuke's last Pokemon, but otherwise, pretty safe. Obviously gets Abomasnow out here against two Genies, which Abomasnow is probably pretty excited right now.
Yeah, very early on in our metagame, Choice Scarf Abomasnow, a very popular choice for dealing with the Dragon types and especially these Genies. Not quite the same thing, now it's slow and in Trick Room, but still gets the job done with its Blizzards. Thanks to Hail making it 100% accurate there. Of course, if Tyranitar is in the back, that Sandstream is going to ruin that strategy just by virtue of being present.
Yeah, that's part of why Tyranitar is such a good Pokemon. The single most common Pokemon in US Nationals, and I imagine it's going to be pretty similar at Worlds, are just disruptive. It protects a lot of the best Pokemon. It's annoying to a lot of the best Pokemon, including Jellicent here, and Abomasnow, really, even though they kind of both annoy each other with Rock-type attacks on the Ice-type and the Grass-type attacks on the Rock-type.
Right. It's definitely an interesting rock, paper, scissors match there from Abomasnow and the Tyranitar.
A really tough turn here for Ryosuke, trying to keep himself alive. Like we mentioned, Abomasnow really good against Genies, and he only has one Pokemon remaining, so he can't just switch twice. So he's got to try to find a way to keep himself in a position where he can still win the game. Sejun's done a great job of putting himself in a good spot here, and Ryosuke's just trying not to get eaten up by the trap here.
Yeah, you can really see how Sejun got to the top of the bracket here. Undefeated in Swiss. He has taken the advantage from turn one and not let go of it. Abomasnow possibly predicting that Tyranitar switch and is going to return back to Sejun, and it will be replaced by that Scrafty. Scrafty and Jellicent back together again. Best friends forever.
Not even 4 turns of this battle could keep them apart.
The Intimidate comes off from Scrafty. Both Thundurus and Landorus are kind of worried about facing such a strong bond there. And as expected, the Thundurus is going to switch out in favor of the last Pokemon from Ryosuke, which is that Tyranitar. And of course, we do know that it's Iron Ball Tyranitar, so it is going to be slow and powerful for the Trick Room. But it looks like that the Shadow Ball is going to come out onto the Tyranitar. It's not going to deal a whole lot of damage thanks to the Dark typing of Tyranitar and the Ghost typing of Shadow Ball. And U-Turn coming back out onto the Scrafty. So you said, remember when you said that Ryosuke can't switch once or twice in one turn? I think he just figured out a way.
Joke's on me, right? There he goes. I'm impressed. It's a clever way for him to play around Intimidate, too. Part of the advantage of that Scrafty switch-in was that he was going to lower the attack of Landorus, but Landorus wasn't having any of that. He got a little free damage with his U-turn and just got out of there.
Yeah, and that Tyranitar also, importantly, not afflicted by the Intimidate, since he switched in after the Scrafty. So definitely a good position from Ryosuke, and definitely not out of this game yet.
He did really almost better than the best thing he could have done there. It's hard to imagine a way he could have ended up in a better spot for how bad that looked last turn. He got a little help from Sejun choosing not to use Blizzard there, which likely would still have not net him one knockout. But he's got Scrafty and against Tyranitar, which is still good. So Ryosuke's probably going to have to fall back on Swagger here and play the odds a bit to try to get out of this one. But Tyranitar's Iron Ball gives him a decent chance.
Yeah, and that's one of the important things about these games, is that you have to make the right moves every turn. Tyranitar doesn't want to deal with that either, is going to switch back out for the Landorus to get the Intimidate back out onto Scrafty. It's going to make sure that Scrafty isn't as much of an offensive threat as Sejun would hope. Of course, also drops the attack of Jellicent, which will be helpful in the Swagger situation, but otherwise not that useful. And it looks like the Fake Out is going to come out onto the Thundurus there, not going to let it get off of Swagger this time, And here comes the Shadow Ball onto the Thundurus, going to try and get the knockout there, and it will be enough. And Thundurus does go down, bringing Ryosuke down to his final 2 Pokemon.
Now, he does get them in safely here. Both of them will avoid major chip damage coming in, but surprisingly passive turn by Ryosuke there. He chooses not to really do anything offensively, and it's tough to do that when you're down. That brings it to only 2 Pokemon remaining here, and he's got to be careful now because his tournament life's got to be flashing before his eyes.
Yeah, but if there are 2 Pokemon that are strong enough to bring you back from the brink, it just might be Tyranitar and Landorus here. Definitely 2 heavy hitters that no one wants to be facing down in these most crucial moments of the game.
Yeah, Tyranitar has turned around plenty of games before, especially in Trick Room here. Rock Slide could be used. Otherwise, he's still going to be able to do decent damage in both of these Pokemon, so Ryosuke's definitely not out yet. But he's got to play this really carefully. Down a game and down in this game, it's not a spot anyone wants to be in.
Yeah, crucially, now that Tyranitar has been forced to switch in by being the last Pokemon, the hail from Abomasnow is going to be uninterrupted, and there is quite literally nothing that Ryosuke can do about it. As we see, Abomasnow switching in is going to summon the hail, not the sandstorm, but replacing the sandstorm with the hail, comes back out onto the field, as it looks like Jellicent is going to go ahead and get the Protect off to protect itself from any damage from that Tyranitar or the Landorus here. And here comes the Rock Slide out from that Tyranitar, is going to deal a good bit of damage to that Abomasnow. Look at all that damage, all the way down to about a quarter left, as as the Landorus is going to go ahead and use the U-turn and get the KO on the switched-in Abomasnow.
Yeah, I mean, you were right, he was able to turn the hail on, but at what cost? No sand to protect Tyranitar now, but it's going to be a game about Intimidate now. The one advantage that Sejun has is by switching Scrafty out there, he's able to get Intimidate applied, and with only 2 physical Pokemon remaining in Ryusuke's side, he isn't able to switch to negate that Intimidate anymore. He's got to play around it.
Yeah, one of the... Scrafty is pretty great at these head-to-heads, too. In addition to the Intimidate, it also can Drain Punch and heal back up. So even though it has a little bit of damage on it right now, if it gets a Drain Punch off on, say, the Tyranitar, 4 times weak to fighting, it's going to heal it right back up to full.
Yeah, I was able to remove its Intimidate by switching out as well, so it's pretty happy right now. Scrafty loves these situations where maybe the battle's going to take a few more turns and he can just kind of slug it out a little bit. It tries to do it a little bit more slowly. It's a delicate, or not just delicate.
It's a brawler.
It's a deliberate fighter. It's going to pick his blows for a few turns.
Yeah, and Ryosuke is not going to let him have as all of the blows that Scrafty wants to get off. It's going to be interesting to see how he manages to avoid that also.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for him, especially because the hail's still ticking down, so it's tough just to stall if you're on that side of the field, because you do have a bit of a time limit on it, even though Sejun's Pokemon are a little bit weaker. You probably don't want Trick Room being reset anymore, because Scrafty will be able to take out Tyranitar pretty easily and Landorus after, but Jellicent won't be using Trick Room here.
Nope, Jellicent will be protecting itself from any damage, and it looks like they're going to get the Rock Slide once more. That's going to deal some damage to the Scrafty, but crucially protects the Jellicent as Scrafty shrugs it off thanks to its resistance to rock, does get the Drain Punch off on the Tyranitar, and that's going to be an easy KO on Tyranitar. And Ryosuke is just down to Landorus, and it'll be all up to Landorus to see if it can actually pull off a win here. And as you see, Scrafty recovering all the way back up to full. This is a dream for Scrafty right now. Especially since Landorus is going to be unable to deal too much damage to Scrafty. Does make the right prediction knowing that Tyranitar was going down anyway, and gets off as much damage as possible onto the Scrafty with that Earthquake.
That's a pretty puny Earthquake, though. That Intimidate is just really reducing the damage, and this is why Scrafty is such a good Pokemon. It didn't get too popular until recently, but people have really started to respect its power because it's good in longer battles like this one. It can heal. It's not the most naturally bulky Pokemon, but it's bulkier than a lot of its alternatives, like Hitmontop. So it can just kind of stick around. It can stay in the battle for longer periods of time and just kind of slowly win the game. Scrafty's done a great job in this one, helping Sejun control this both this game and Game 1.
And also, crucially, having both the Jellicent and the Scrafty out on the field means that this Earthquake that got the KO on Jellicent and dealt some more damage to Scrafty is weakened as it only will deal the full damage when it's the only Pokemon on the field. The Dark Gem coming out from Scrafty going to crunch onto that Landorus, and we're going to have to see how much damage this can do. Not enough! Landorus surviving with a sliver of health right there as the blinking red. Ryosuke has the make a move now, you're about to lose music coming on.
Oh, he might not mind it too much. Interesting situation here. Scrafty does get stuck with just Landorus, which, like you mentioned before, will increase the damage from Earthquake, so it's not too likely that Scrafty will be able to survive another one. However, the hail is still ticking down.
The hail is still ticking, and you can see Scrafty with more HP is going to go ahead and use that Detect and hope to use that hail damage to weaken Landorus and get the KO. Because, of course, Landorus now being faster than Scrafty, going to be able to get that Earthquake back off. It's going to be real close.
I like Landorus' odds here. I think it is just enough health to survive 2 more hits from hail. It's right at the edge there, but Scrafty probably have to detect twice.
Oh, Scrafty does get the second detect off, though, and it's going to come down to just how much HP that Landorus has, as it's not going to be able to deal any damage back to Sejun Scrafty. And here it comes. Here comes the hail. Small amounts of damage, and it does survive. Just barely. Sejun will need 1 more detect. This is one of the closest matches I've seen in some time.
Oh! Scrafty can't do it.
Scrafty can't get the detect off, and the Earthquake comes in from Landorus, is going to get the knockout, and Ryosuke takes us to a game 3.
Oh my god, what a clutch victory! The Landorus can't have more than a hit point or 2, but it never gave up.
There's no way that's more than 1 or 2 HP.
Literally hanging on by a thread there. Like, I can't imagine a game closer than that one. Like, it doesn't get any more exciting than this. You know?
Yeah, it's 1-0 victory, the closest thing possible, and we're going to a game 3. Like we mentioned at the top, this could have been a World Finals if they hadn't gotten matched so early in the bracket, and this series is paying off.
Yeah, it could have been a great finals, too. It makes you imagine how good the rest of the matches are going to be.
Yeah.
We get a 3rd game here between 2 amazing players, both of whom are the champions of their respective nations, Sejun in Korea and Ryosuke in Japan. And they both played 2 great games here. And what I think was interesting, too, is they didn't deviate from their strategies too much in this game. In spite of losing the first game, Ryosuke picked similar Pokemon. I think the same Pokemon, actually.
Same Pokemon.
Just played it a little bit better. And I think that's sort of what's great about VGC. You can pick the same Pokemon and end up with very different results depending on how good of decisions you make during the game. Both of them have pretty neutral matchups here. So they just both kind of figured their way through the matchup once each. The first game, Sejun was a lot smarter, and this time it was Ryosuke.
All right, and we are getting right into this game 3. I'm excited about it. I can't believe we're getting to see a 3rd game from both of these players. I kind of expected it, knowing who they were, but we're about to get right back into the game. Just to refresh, Sejun's team, who will be at the bottom of your screen, is Magmar, Marowak, Tornadus, Jellicent, Scrafty, and Abomasnow. And as you can see on the screen, Ryosuke's Tyranitar, Heatran, Landorus, Cresselia, Thundurus, and Conkeldurr. Both of these players very happy with their Pokemon choices. Do you see anything different happening?
I sure hope not. I mean, that was an amazing game, too. I'd love to see something like that again.
Yeah.
It could very easily have gone either way, depending on how the detect rolls went and how a few decisions during the match went. So I'd love to see more of this. I mean, you don't get better matches than these.
Yeah, definitely, and we are right here into the game. Game 3, Ryosuke Kosuge from Japan on the top of your screen, Sejun Park from Korea on the bottom. Sejun does go for a completely, half different lead. Pretty radical for the games we've seen so far. Brings out his Scrafty and Abomasnow, as Ryosuke brings out his Heatran and his Thundurus.
Oh, what a brilliant adjustment there. Sejun's like, you led 2 GDs against me 2 games in a row. I'm not letting you do any more of that. Here comes Abomasnow. And Ryosuke's like, you're right. I can't do any more of that, but I'm going to predict that you expect me to do that and set up my Heatran, who's going to counter that Abomasnow. A really smart play by him there.
Yeah, the reason we haven't seen as much Abomasnow is because Heatran is a pretty hard counter to that Pokemon. The grass-ice typing, not that great against the fire-steel.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine a worse Pokemon matchup than that one. Heatran's bulky, it's a fire type, so it's 4 times effective on Abomasnow. Abomasnow can't really do anything back because both grass and ice are bad against both of Heatran's types. It's worst case as it gets in VGC.
On the plus side, he does have Scrafty out to provide that fake-out pressure. Can take Heatran out of the game for at least this 1 turn with that flinch. But that's going to make Thundurus a little bit scared about sticking around.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult turn here. Scrafty's going to be able to stall a bit here, but I don't know if it really wants to stick around with this Heatran either. Just because there is some threat from the support Pokemon Thundurus disabling it, and Scrafty's been really important for Sejun in this series, so I'd be careful.
Heatran recognizes that the Scrafty fake-out is a threat on it, goes for the Protect. Does protect away that fake-out, it looks like, as we see the Thunderbolt coming out from Ryosuke's from Thundurus. It's going to deal some decent damage there, about 60 HP there, as Abomasnow does get off its attack, and it is going to be a Blizzard. Considering how bulky this Thundurus has been, probably won't be enough for the easy 1-hit KO, but he gets the 1-hit KO! I am a liar, and that's an early lead for Sejun.
Well, I mean, that's one way to get it done, right? He gets the critical hit Blizzard, which is able to take Thundurus out, but I was a little surprised he chose to take Leaf Thundurus in there. Obviously, the Ice-type Pokemon, we mentioned, it's good against Genies. That's why he led it this time. And Heatran isn't able to protect it that turn because of the fake-out pressure. So I kind of expect you to see a switch to something there, but I guess we see Tyranitar anyway.
For example, the Tyranitar.
Yeah, wouldn't have taken too much damage from that Blizzard there. Can't help but think the Tyranitar might have shown up just a little late for this one, but hopefully Ryosuke will be able to turn this one around and keep the game interesting.
Yeah, and that Tyranitar coming back out on the field is going to be able to put pressure onto the Abomasnow, but because of its Iron Ball, it's going to be slower than both of the Pokemon on the field.
Yeah, two Pokemon Abomasnow really doesn't like, but then Scrafty does. Both of them are weak to fighting, so Scrafty once again going to be the key here.
And it looks like Scrafty recognizes that, isn't going to let Ryosuke get any free pot shots off on it. Goes for the Detect to protect itself from any damage there. And it looks like it is going to be able to avoid some of this damage coming out from Heatran. But the Eruption coming out with that Fire Gem is going to be more than enough to get the KO onto Abomasnow.
His health keeps going down here, but...
Oh! Except for the Focus Sash. 1 HP that Abomasnow hangs on. Of course, the Sandstorm will be enough to take that out, except for the Giga Drain. Coming right back out, going to be able to heal it back up a little bit. Still quite a bit of damage to that Tyranitar, even through the Sandstorm. Is going to heal back up to a safer orange position as Tyranitar finally gets its chance to move, but it gets hit into the Protect.
Yeah, it was all a trick there. Looked like there was going to be a free knockout on this Abomasnow there, but it had a plan. It wasn't just going to give itself up that easily. And the Focus Sash and the healing from Giga Drain is able to keep it alive for yet another turn. I'd be surprised if Sejun chose to give it up here, just because having the option of switching Abomasnow in later to turn the Sandstorm off is really important for him. But he's got to find something. He's probably going to have to give something up here. Scrafty is really important, and it's already used its Detect, so it's vulnerable, and Abomasnow is low in HP here, so going to be a tricky turn.
And it may have already used its Detect, but that Scrafty is, as we've already seen, very good at protecting itself, does get the Detect off again. An Ice Shard coming out from the Abomasnow, going to get the priority attack off before Heatran gets the damage done. Gets a little bit of extra damage on the Tyranitar, not a lot, but every bit counts. And the Eruption finally getting to get the KO onto that Abomasnow, as Tyranitar is going to have no one to target.
Poor Tyranitar. He's not getting anything done this turn either, but a pretty daring play by Sejun there to risk the double Detect, but I think it's smart. It puts him in a good position here, I guess, since the gamble paid off. Scrafty's still alive, which is extremely important for him. He's able to get a free switch here to bring something in to help protect Scrafty a little bit from these two intimidating attackers, so it should help him turn the game around a little bit, but the tables have been turning here. Most of the games we've been watching today, Sejun's had a big advantage, but I think Ryosuke is definitely in control here. The series has turned around after Game 2.
Yeah, Game 2 with that razor edge finish. Jellicent is going to be very, very strong against both the Tyranitar and the Heatran, though. Really interesting sets from both of these. Both the Jellicent and the Heatran using HP-based attacks, the Water Spout and the Eruption. In this case, looks like Jellicent's is going to be the stronger one. But Heatran does get his off first, which means he's going to be much stronger. The Eruption coming out, going to be dealing damage to both the Scrafty and the Jellicent. Does get the KO on Scrafty finally. No Detect this time around, as Scrafty faints and goes back to its Pokeball. And Jellicent is going to get crunched by that Tyranitar and deal enough damage for the KO. Easy KO from Tyranitar there with that crunch.
Well, I mean, it's a little surprising there. You think Jellicent's out there, oh, easy Water Spout, just trade a couple KOs. But Tyranitar's not as slow as we thought it was, I guess, and it's able to pick that important knockout up. And Sejun's in some trouble now.
Yeah, but Marowak against the Heatran and the Tyranitar. Can Marowak save the game for Sejun here?
I mean, both these Pokemon are weak to ground, right? Marowak's going to try hard.
And Heatran isn't going to let Marowak get a shot this turn as it protects itself. And Tyranitar, using the Sunny Day, going to get rid of the weather and replace it with Sun, boosting Heatran's damage output for the next turn. While Marowak is going to try and get the attack off onto Heatran, but goes into the Protect.
Yeah, clever play by Tyranitar there. It's not able to do too much damage to Marowak, so instead it uses its free turn to turn the Sun on and help Heatran up this turn.
Yep, and Marowak is going to go for the Detect as well, trying to prevent as much damage as possible this turn as Heatran and Tyranitar, both failing to deal any damage.
Yeah, Marowak's trying hard to avoid its fate here, but Unless it's going to detect 4 times more in a row and stall at all the turns of Sunny Day, it's going to have a rough go of surviving the incoming eruption on this one.
But it is going to try its very best. It gets off another detect. If there's anything this Marowak is good at, it's detecting.
Really, we see the theme of this team. They're all really just trained extremely well at their detect skills. I have a feeling that Marowak's going to have a hard time actually pulling this one off, but you have to respect the decision here. It's the only chance Sejun has to pull this game out. So it's the right thing to do to pick your best option, and that's what he's doing here.
And Marowak goes for another detect, but it fails this time, and that's going to leave it very vulnerable to Heatran's eruption. The magma blocks fall onto the Marowak, and down, down, down goes the hit points bar. The sun-boosted eruption gets the KO on Marowak, and Ryosuke Kosuge gets the win over Sejun Park in 3 fantastic games.
I mean, what amazing series. I thought for sure watching the first game that Sejun was going to come out on top, but that's not what ended up happening here. I think it's fair to say, too, that Sejun was probably the favorite to win this tournament. I mean, obviously, Ray Rizzo, the 3-time world champion, has the best resume, but Sejun had the best siege, and I was really expecting him to come out on top here, and Ryosuke won an amazing series here.
Yeah, definitely a great set of 3 games from Ryosuke. Sejun, of course, a phenomenal player as well. It's the end of the tournament run for him, but he's had a fantastic season. Ryosuke gets to move on to the round of 4. A cheer comes out from the crowd for him, and really, I just can't stop saying it. Those are fantastic battles, and I was so happy to see Eruption Heatran.
Yeah, I was too. I think it's one of the more underappreciated moves outside of Japan. There was a lot more of it there, especially during their qualifier, but it didn't really catch on in the rest of the world the way a lot of their moves do.
And that's a great point that it's one of those Japanese metagame central things. Definitely haven't seen much of that outside of Japan, and it looks like maybe we should have.
I mean, it won for a reason, right? I think Heatran was dominant the one game it came out, and he used it really intelligently, too. He didn't just throw it out there every game and expect it to work. He was able to set it up, and in the 3rd game, it was ready.